Hey, what is up, guys? I want to do an update video because right now it's kind of exciting times for the farming operation. If you look behind me, there's about 45 acres here that I just purchased this fall. And then if we go about 5 miles straight west of here, there's about 80 acres that I just purchased. Now on net acre basis, nothing's like changing because I'm trading certain farms, I'm selling off certain farms and buying certain farms. And also, forgot to mention this this piece that I'm actually filming on right now is Spencer's. So he's got about 45 acres over here, and I bought about 45 acres over here, although only like 38 are going to be tillable over here, where we actually cleared the fence line this fall and we're going to farm them all as one. So it works out super good. I'll get into that a little more. I do want to give a little bit of backstory and stuff for anybody who's new to the channel. Just real quick, in 2020 when I graduated college and stuff, I was looking to buy some farm ground and everything lined up really good at the time. Actually, we had so many inflationary pressures developing, that was right in the COVID time frame, and we had so much QE and fiscal deficits we were running, which was the perfect equation kind of for high inflation and people running to farmland. And so at that time I was like, okay, well I gotta kind of get in before everybody else gets in. And times were tough in the spring of 2020, and so I put my first offer on my first farm, knowing that kind of times were tough and could maybe get one bought at a good price. And so I did that knowing like that's how I was going to start farming, and there's no clear path to how to start farming or anything like that. So that ended up being like an hour away from home, and I was like, okay, well we'll buy two more. So I bought two more farms kind of in that small period, and everything worked out really good with that. And I knew long term eventually kind of wanted to buy closer to home. And you always know that in the back of your mind that, you know, the 1031 exchange process is there. So if you want to trade farms around or trade land around, it works out pretty good and stuff. And so in my mind, I kind of had, you know, the perfect situation would be to be able to buy like a really nice acre, well, it doesn't have to be really nice, but an acreage site from a retiring farmer that had, you know, the bins, the shed, the house on it, and then like a 160 or 240 kind of around it. Like that's the perfect scenario, but that doesn't always happen. And they're really hard to find. Like I've talked to a lot of realtors and stuff like, hey, if you know of something like this that ever comes available, I'd love to look at purchasing it and stuff. And so that was kind of the long-term plan, was maybe that comes up and stuff and I can trade my farms I just bought for that. Well, you start realizing like farming's all long-term gains, and you can't build a farming operation for like 5 or 7 years and then go and pack that thing up and then just move somewhere else and restart and stuff. So I kind of realized that, and maybe I got a little too impatient and was just like, okay, well, if you want to kind of farm around home or farm kind of closer to back home and stuff, you need to just kind of start buying it. And there may be an opportunity that like a nice farm site comes up and stuff, but it's really rare. So basically that's what I'm doing, is just trading the first farms that I owned and just trading those for these over here. And it sounds really easy to do, and it's kind of complicated because you gotta go through this is actually a reverse 1031 exchange process, but there's all these kind of tax laws that you have to follow within the rules and stuff. So that's exactly what we're doing. We're not purchasing like any new ground at the moment unless I have to add more capital to the deal to make it work. But otherwise, like on net, nothing's really changing. I know I'm gonna get this question. How much did you pay for farmland? Being Iowa farmland, I've heard of farm sales go for $25,000 an acre, $30,000 in Missouri. How much did you pay for it? I will tell you, on the 80 acres that I purchased, it was a public auction. That was $13,700 an acre, and I would say that's pretty. That was pretty fair. It was you know, a pretty standard market price for around here. It was 82 CSR2, but there is a spot on that farm that ponds a little bit, and you guys will see that in the drone photos. It had to be replanted last year and planted horizontally north and south instead of the east and west the way it should. So that discounted the value a little bit for sure there. But yeah, so now that me and Spencer are in an area where it's like you're gonna be long-term, you can start making a lot of long-term decisions. Like, even though I probably shouldn't have built a shed, I did build a shed on one of my farms 2 years ago. But you can start building a shed, you can start building bins in the future, like way in the future. We don't farm enough acres at all to, for now, the co-op works good. But eventually bins down the road, and stuff, and maybe a house and stuff, and you got kind of your home base and stuff, and it works nice like that. And then you can do a bunch of land improvements, like drain tile, get every farm draining correctly and get fertility correct and get your pH correct, and make those, you know, kind of long-term investments and long-term decisions. So like that's going to work extremely well. So I know I'm going to get the question too. A lot of people have been asking, like, what are your equipment upgrades for next year and stuff? And not everybody upgrades equipment, you know, every single year and stuff, but a lot of people ask the question, of course, of like, what are you looking at next? So right now we've got an 8110 tractor, which does everything I need. But one thing is, I know Spencer's farm right here that you guys are sitting on, we'd love to get, there's some side hill seeps and there's some wet spots. We'd love to get tile underneath it. And then this farm right here that I bought, 45 acres, we've got a creek running all along here that I'd love to get tile underneath it. So, and same with the 80 acres I bought that sits extremely wet. Love to get tile underneath that too. So, and we're young and it's kind of fun doing some physical activity instead of sitting in the tractor all day. So, so I'd love to get a tile plow potentially, and maybe like an older 4-wheel drive tractor or something to pull the tile plow. Otherwise, I think the 8110 maybe could get away with it with the excavator on front of the 8110. But that's one thing me and Spencer are really looking at. And then maybe a sprayer for this year. Although I don't have water and we have like no place to pull water right now. So we'll see. So to give you guys a little like ground view, I know I have drone shots. This is the fence line between me and Spencer's farm. Was a tree line we cleared and stuff so we can combine both the farms and farm them like a really long direction. I think it'll end up being like a half mile or 3/4 mile long rows to the furthest point down there. So it'll work extremely good. This 45 acres here has a super nice gently roll to it, which then goes down to a waterway and then eventually goes down to a creek. And one thing I've learned in farming is you actually want slope. Like your highest performing farms are the ones that are like B slope or have just a little bit of nice slope to them, compared to like a really flat farm that ends up sitting wet. Now, it totally depends on the year and the rainfall too. I shouldn't say that. Like I said, it just kind of depends on the year too. And now Spencer actually ended up disking this, hit this one time with a disc, which is basically like a VT. It really didn't go that deep. Just chopped up some stalks a little bit and worked in the P&K. Now this entire fall for like all the tree cleanup and tillage, I was gone most of the time and I had Spencer do everything and a couple buddies that we hired to do everything. It kind of sucks, but I was launching American Farming, which is my software company's mobile game that we spent 3 years making. And that was super important, and that launched in November. So if you guys are interested in it, or if you know somebody that's interested in it for a mobile game, definitely check it out. Towards the back of the farm, when you come up to the railroad track in the creek, there's about like 5 acres that is not in row crop and is not in CRP. So I'm trying to figure out what to do with that come next year. So let me know, do you guys want to see haying videos this summer? Spencer, my brother, he has a 4020 and I forgot what model of baler, a small square baler, an old rake, an old sickle mower. I think it'd be pretty cool to hay that little 4 or 5 acres there instead of putting into row crop or beans. Plus, I think Spencer might have a couple acres over there that he might try and hay. So it'd work out pretty good. Let me know if you guys want to see some haying videos. And then here's actually the creek. So you got the creek, which goes up to Spencer's, or which comes down from Spencer's. And then you got the bridge. And the thing is every couple years, like this bridge would potentially wash out. And so the creek would get so high, they would wash out the bridge and the bridge would go floating down the creek. And then you had to take like a crane back there to be able to retrieve it and then replace the bridge right here. So it was kind of a hassle, honestly. So that's one of the reasons why it ended up working super good for me to purchase it. Was it was connected to Spencer's, and it was kind of a hassle. It was kind of a hassle for our neighbor to own it and be able to get to it, because most years you'd have to haul grain and cut across Spencer's farm and cut way across Spencer's farm out to the gravel road. So it ended up working like super good, I think, for both parties. Now here's the 80 acres. It actually ends up being like 77 because there's an acreage on it worth like 3 acres, and that's owned by somebody else. That's not owned by me. And what's really nice about this is the co-op that will most likely be taking grain to is like 1.5 miles away. So it's super close. Until we get bins, all the grain's probably going to the co-op. It's a pretty flat farm. There's like 2 acres of sea slope on it, so there is like a little ridge hilltop, but otherwise it's like B slopes and 0 to 2% slopes, which is like A slopes. The bad thing about it is there's about 9-10 acres that sits wet, and there's an 8-inch outlet running through it. Me and Spencer have done some investigating. It seems like it's working, so we should be able to tie into the 8-inch outlet and hopefully tile this farm. So just for some fun, I put together an Iowa farmland values chart from 1860 to today. Now, I've never been able to actually find one that went into the 1800s or anything like that. So I was lucky to be able to find an old journal from Iowa State back in 1967 on farmland values that went pre like 1950s. Okay, now everything here is in nominal dollars and it's all log scaled. So that's why it doesn't go just sideways and then straight vertical. It's because it's completely log scaled. What's super interesting is everybody always talks about the 80s. And even though 1920s were more of an outside factor that helped affect farmland values and drive the price down, it's still interesting in the 1920s to see a 71% decline versus the 80s, a negative 63% decline. Also to think about, if you would have purchased farmland at the peak in like 1920, if you were able to hold on to that farm still, it would be about 40 years until that farm has a positive appreciation return. And then lastly, what's interesting, the first data point I have is in year 1860. Now, people were buying farmland a lot cheaper than $8-9 an acre in 1860. You know, they were buying it for cents and stuff, probably in the 50s. If we go from 1860 to 1920, that is roughly, give or take some years, of course, but about 60 years to the blow off top. And then if we go from 1920 to 1981, 82, kind of the peak in farmland prices, that's about 60 years to the blow off top. Now the question, and this isn't just adding up to things, is if we go another 60 years and find a blow off top, that'd basically be roughly in 2040, which is super interesting. I doubt it happens in the year 2040, and things have changed so much since the 80s. A lot of debt positions and stuff have changed. So I'm not saying that'll happen. It's just interesting to look at. And this is one of my favorite charts. I stole this from Lynn Alden. She's a great macro analyst. And this was from 2020, right before farmland values started taking up. I haven't seen an updated one, but this is M2 money supply versus farmland values. And it's insanely accurate because in 2020, M2 money supply just started taking off. Farmland values were sideways at the time, and then farmland started taking off. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you did enjoy it. And now that American farming's launched, hopefully I can put out more videos in the spring because it's going to be weird transitioning. But anyways, thanks for watching.